Most people think influence means having the best argument, the strongest personality, or the loudest voice in the room. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People argues almost the opposite. Real influence begins when you stop trying to prove yourself and start paying serious attention to other people. This book was first published in 1936, but its central problem is still painfully modern. We all want better relationships. We want people to listen, cooperate, trust us, like working with us, and say yes when something matters. But we often damage that possibility with small habits: criticism, impatience, interrupting, correcting, bragging, arguing, or making every conversation about ourselves. Carnegie's message is simple. People are not moved by logic alone. They are moved by pride, fear, desire, recognition, and the deep need to feel important. If you understand that, you can handle people with more tact, warmth, and effectiveness. The first major lesson is, do not criticize, condemn, or complain. That does not mean pretending bad behavior is fine. It means understanding that direct criticism usually makes people defensive before it makes them thoughtful. When people feel attacked, they protect their ego. They explain, justify, blame, or withdraw. Even when your criticism is technically correct, it may still fail because it makes the other person feel small. Carnegie points out that people rarely see themselves as villains. They have reasons, pressures, blind spots, and stories that make their actions feel acceptable to them. So if you want change, begin with restraint. Ask what the person is trying to protect. Ask what need is underneath the behavior. You will often get further by understanding than by condemning. The second lesson is, give honest and sincere appreciation. This is not flattery. Flattery is cheap because it is about getting something. Appreciation is powerful because it notices something real. People are hungry to be seen. A worker wants their effort recognized. A friend wants their loyalty valued. A partner wants to know their care is not invisible. Carnegie's advice is to look for the good in people and say it clearly. Not vaguely, not mechanically, but specifically. Instead of saying, "Good job," say what was good. You handled that customer calmly. You made the meeting clearer. You kept going when it was difficult. Specific appreciation tells people that you actually paid attention. The third lesson is, arouse in the other person an eager want. This may be the most practical idea in the book. We usually persuade by explaining what we want. Carnegie says influence begins by asking what the other person wants. If you want a child to study, an employee to improve, a customer to buy, or a colleague to help, the question is not, how do I push harder? The question is, how can this connect with their own desire? People act for their reasons, not yours. The skilled communicator builds a bridge between the request and the other person's hopes, problems, pride, or benefit. The next part of the book is about becoming genuinely likable. Carnegie's first rule here is basic but rare: become interested in other people. Many people try to be interesting. Carnegie says it is often more effective to be interested. Ask questions. Remember details. Notice what someone cares about. When you show real curiosity, people feel respected. And when people feel respected, they open up. This connects to one of the book's most famous ideas: remember and use people's names. A name is personal. It is one of the simplest ways to say, you are not just a face in the crowd. In business, friendship, and leadership, remembering names signals attention. Forgetting names signals the opposite, even when you did not mean it that way. Another rule is smile. That sounds almost too simple, but Carnegie treats it as a social signal. A warm expression tells people they are welcome. It lowers tension. It makes the first few seconds of contact easier. A smile cannot replace character, competence, or honesty, but it can open the door for them. Then comes one of the deepest habits in the book: be a good listener and encourage others to talk about themselves. Most conversations are quiet competitions for airtime. We wait for our turn. We prepare our reply. We jump in with our own story. Carnegie suggests a different posture. Listen as if the other person matters, because they do. Good listening is not passive. It is active attention. It asks follow-up questions. It remembers what was said. It lets the other person finish a thought without being rushed. If you want people to enjoy talking with you, talk in terms of their interests. This does not mean abandoning your own personality. It means meeting people where they are. The quickest route to connection is often through what the other person already cares about. The final likability principle is to make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. This is the heart of the book. Carnegie believes the desire to feel important is one of the strongest forces in human behavior. People want dignity. They want their contribution to count. They want to be treated as if their inner world has weight. When you give people that feeling honestly, you become memorable, not because you manipulated them, but because you offered something many people rarely receive: full human consideration. The book then turns to winning people to your way of thinking. Carnegie's first rule is blunt. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Arguments often produce losers on both sides. Even if you win the facts, you may lose the relationship. The other person may walk away embarrassed, resentful, and less open than before. Carnegie's point is not that truth does not matter. It is that persuasion is usually more delicate than victory. So instead of starting with disagreement, show respect for the other person's opinion. Avoid saying, "You are wrong." If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. This is disarming because it removes the other person's need to attack. A sincere admission can turn conflict into cooperation. Begin in a friendly way. Get the other person saying yes early. Let them do more of the talking. Let them feel that the idea is partly theirs. These principles all move in the same direction. Reduce resistance before trying to create agreement. One of Carnegie's most useful persuasion lessons is to see things from the other person's point of view. This is not the same as agreeing. It means entering their frame long enough to understand why their position makes sense to them. Once you can describe their concern fairly, you have a chance to influence them. Until then, you may only be reacting to a caricature. Carnegie also says to appeal to nobler motives. People like to think of themselves as fair, generous, responsible, and reasonable. When you speak to those qualities, you often call forth better behavior than accusation would. A person who resists being ordered may respond well to being trusted. The leadership section of the book applies these ideas to correcting others without creating resentment. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Call attention to mistakes indirectly when possible. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let the person save face. These rules are not soft. They are practical. If your goal is improvement, humiliation is usually a bad tool. A person who feels publicly embarrassed may comply for a moment, but they will rarely feel loyal, creative, or motivated. Respect keeps the door open. Carnegie also recommends giving people a fine reputation to live up to. This is a powerful leadership move. If you tell someone they are careless, they may accept that identity. If you tell them you have seen them be thoughtful and capable, and you believe they can bring that standard back, you invite them into a better version of themselves. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Encourage every improvement. Make the other person happy about doing what you suggest. Again, the pattern is consistent. People move more willingly when their dignity is protected. So what is the book really teaching? Not tricks, not charm as performance, not fake niceness. At its best, How to Win Friends and Influence People teaches disciplined empathy. It asks you to slow down your ego long enough to notice someone else's. It teaches that influence is not something you take from people. It is something they give you when they feel understood, respected, and valued. The book's advice can be misused if you treat it as manipulation. But used properly, it pushes you toward better behavior, less criticism, more appreciation, better listening, more tact, more humility, and more concern for the other person's point of view. The practical takeaway is this: before every difficult interaction, ask 3 questions. First, how can I protect this person's dignity? Second, what does this person genuinely want? Third, how can I make cooperation feel like their own choice, not my pressure? If you practice those questions, you will become easier to trust, easier to work with, and harder to resent. Carnegie's book remains valuable because human nature has not changed very much. We still want to feel important. We still resist being criticized. We still open up when someone listens. And we still follow people who make us feel respected rather than defeated. That is the quiet power of this book. It teaches you to become more influential by becoming more considerate. There is also a useful tension in the book. Carnegie wants us to be agreeable, but he is not telling us to become weak. The goal is not to avoid every hard conversation. The goal is to have hard conversations in a way that still gives the other person room to stay human. You can set a boundary without contempt. You can disagree without turning the moment into a contest. You can ask for better work without attacking someone's identity. That is why the book matters in everyday life. In a meeting, it may mean asking one more question before giving your opinion. In a marriage, it may mean replacing a complaint with a specific appreciation before raising a problem. In sales, it may mean caring less about your pitch and more about the buyer's actual pressure. In leadership, it may mean correcting privately, praising specifically, and making progress feel possible. The principles sound simple because they are simple, but simple does not mean easy. It takes discipline to hold back criticism when you feel right. It takes attention to remember names and details. It takes humility to admit fault quickly. It takes maturity to let someone else feel ownership of an idea when your ego wants credit. That is why Carnegie's book is not just about social skill. It is about self-control. The better you manage your own need to be important, the better you can honor that need in others. If you enjoyed this summary, subscribe to One Book in 10 Minutes. We turn the world's most valuable books into clear, practical lessons you can use in real life. One book, 10 minutes. Better you.